Thank you very much for everybody for joining in with us. Over to you. Who's our sports person on the first day? We'll stand up, will you?
Hello?
It does, if you put it right now.
I think my voice is too loud already. Okay, hello, I'm Ed Colbeck. I'm representing, we're going to be table number one. Table number one. So, with our 10-year-old selves, with a little bit of life experience as well, we set up some priorities. So we discussed quite a few things. One of the things we discussed was making sure that we always had dementia voice and a range of dementia voices. So, like was said earlier, sometimes you can have the most able dementia voices in the room, and we wanted to make sure that we're getting voices from people in care homes who may be more further on, or people who are pre-diagnosis. I know we can't say someone who's pre-diagnosis, but we consider pre-diagnosis when we talk about patient experience. We also thought the personalised care and support plan was a really great thing to have as priority. But we wanted to make sure that we considered how you would have those conversations, how you'd have those conversations with the family as well. So we're not just considering a clinician talking to a patient, and also that these plans might change, and how do we check when these plans are changing. We also discussed, about people without families or carers, or where the family or carer just aren't able to support as much as we think they are. Or that they may also have complex health conditions, especially with dementia. So, are we expecting too much of them at the moment? We also talked a little bit about health inequality and access to services as a priority. How do we maintain someone's independence for longer? And also thinking about workforce and training. So after that, we decided to focus a bit. And we decided to focus a bit on the care home issue and what possibilities we can have with care homes. So we were thinking, how do we get care homes involved? Should we identify good practice in care homes? Should we identify bad practice in care homes? Should we...
The papers do that.
But should we maybe say, actually, rather than just chastise bad care homes, say, actually, learn from this good care home? And thinking about champions. So practically, we thought maybe we should get the CQC here, with some reps from care homes, not just carers, but also care home managers, to get some dissenting voices maybe that we can challenge. We thought maybe some more output videos, bringing people or organisations not aware of our agenda already, start getting some carers and frontline staff in hubs, and we just need organisation to devote some dedicated time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just did a little bit of surfing there on the internet, and within this room, with just like the Alzheimer's Society, Dementia Friends, NHS UK, right, a Facebook and a Twitter presence, we could have got stuff to 2 million people this afternoon, but we've been writing on bits of paper. We actually could have got what we've been doing and shared it everywhere and said, what do you think? Then that means that you actually have the community. If we're putting people at the centre of things, why not share it? Like if we've got cameras here, why not actually think, we could have reached 2 million people here today. 2 million people. And it would have cost nought at all. We need to be, if the magic's here, why aren't we harnessing it? Right, next up, who would like to speak over here and pass the microphone? Look at this, everyone's going, not me. Go on,
Okay, so our table, we had quite a lot of discussion. We wanted to talk about personal health budgets. We thought that was really important. But we identified actually a more basic thing than that. It's advocacy. Because if you don't know about things, you can't access them. And a lot of people living with dementia and their carers are excluded even from the notion of personal health budget because they don't qualify for anything that's considered to be a health need at all. And so that was quite a long part of the discussion that we had between us. We thought that it would be really good to identify some kind of advocate as a mediator. And we were talking about the link workers, and what was the difference between how that was envisaged and the kind of advocacy that we envisaged for people trying to access all kinds of different services, which might include social prescribing. Giving people a voice. We did talk also about, we've got two ladies here who live with dementia themselves, but they are part of the more visible community who are able to articulate their own experience, and they were thinking how they could maybe harness some wider experiences within their own community. Social prescribing, yes, we are keen to explore that further, and also training of people who work within services. Also, to give greater awareness of people within services of their duty to disseminate knowledge about what services are available, however they are funded, because I think we've all identified that there is a big problem with the notion of the divide between social care and healthcare, and that there may be an assumption on the part of a lot of people who are gatekeepers that you need not tell people about services unless you think that you are responsible for funding them, and that excludes a lot of people from even accessing care for themselves. Workforce culture, and I think we were looking at how policy could be influenced by the discussions within this room to look at actually how services operate within the way that they disseminate information to people so that they can advocate for themselves.
Thank you. Can we pass the mic across? Who would like it now? Signal who wants to pass it. Oh, nearly.
Yeah, it's working. Okay, I'm going to try and summarise a somewhat labyrinthine conversation we had. We landed on social prescribing to begin with, and we're encouraged particularly to focus on this pragmatically, really, because there's going to be resources there available. We need to think how to direct those effectively. Some of the practical challenges were really about the training for GPs and their colleagues, the whole question of mapping social prescribing options, i.e. the opportunities to which people might be directed, and how to open those opportunities up for people. So that was a kind of key area. What sort of infrastructure is needed within the community to make those connections and to make that aspiration real? We talked about a lot about personalisation, and we talked about the red book that women are given when they're having a baby, and the idea that that's a personalised plan that the individual owns throughout that process, and that could be emulated within this area. So the plan genuinely centres on the individual and is owned by them. And there may be some technological solutions and ways to make that happen for people.
Do you think we should focus more on the other end of life? Because, do you know, if you think about the care you put into somebody coming into the world, we need to be putting that level of care into every day for these people. Do you know, I sometimes think if Children in Need was called 83-year-olds in need, they'd make notes. And I think that is a brilliant idea. That is genius.
I think the basic idea is not so much that contrast, but just the idea that the plan should travel with the person.
That's it.
Really. I think we had quite a debate about the language of social prescribing, which I know I've had with colleagues at NHS England before. It does rather subvert the idea of personalisation, because suggests that power remains with the medical professional to set that. If we watched the video you showed earlier and listened to what people were saying, everyone was really talking about things that affirm their sense of who they were, their sense of the self. And therefore, really, the best social prescribing is going to affirm that too, and people are going to be able to pursue the activities that matter to them from the outset, rather than those that are chosen or believed to be important to them. So there's an issue about how to get across that. And then the other thing that was really crucial was, echoing other points, the need to look at the whole family, or if not the whole family, the kind of other people that matter to the person in their life, and how they become part of that personalised plan and that journey, and the need for GPs and others to be proactive in their engagement with those other people.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Can we pass it round? Now, in order to get out of here before Thursday, right, if we do a couple of points each, and then that will be wonderful. Over to you, yes.
Okay, so we behaved like proper 10-year-olds and went off piste a bit, and didn't specifically go for priorities, possibilities and practicalities. But what we did think was that we needed to start right from the beginning and think about having some sort of shared narrative, so that we understood what we were trying to communicate, some common language and some shared values. From that shared narrative, we then thought, well, okay, we then need to create the demand, and we talked about how we would do that. So our reach, as you've pointed out, is massive, but actually how do we make those messages land? and there was something there about a piece of work to start with in making sure that there was a common shared and common language and understood by across all the stakeholders. We thought that that would then have the success factor of engaging the workforce and engaging all the stakeholders, and that's including clinicians and professionals, and the whole message then around how do we do that workforce development. Some of that possibilities was looking at good practice and do we need some sort of evidential gathering as to what's out there to sell the story, case studies, community engagement, stories and the like. And following on from that, the possibilities were then about mobilising the resources that we've got in terms of the voluntary sector, organisations that are already there, and carers to make sure that the voice again is carried through, and we thought that would be achieved through local levels. We got on then to talk about the model of the assembly and the hubs and understanding how the different layers and levels, an STP level, then at a hub level and then at a local engagement level, and could we maybe test that out as to what we offer across creating the demand, mobilising the workforce, and then looking at how we engage voluntary sector and commissions look like in a specific area.
Right, thank you very much. Folks, how many of you think that we're possibly missing a trick with, there's a part of our community who are incredibly bright, incredibly experienced, and so many incredibly bored. There's this group of people who've retired and don't know what to do. Why don't we harness some of the tremendous experience and skills that are out there? Because there's a lot of people who are sat watching Homes Under the Hammer and wishing that they hadn't actually retired, but they've been given a present so they can't go back. I see this all the time. People who are volunteering at care homes, volunteering in community things, they just want something to do because they've lost them. And I can't help thinking there's a big seam of people in this country, all over the place. Over here, who's got the microphone? Right, go nice and loud. Right.
Okay, well, very interesting you should say that, Vivian, because that's exactly what we were looking at, addressing isolation as one of our priorities. And we just feel that there is a large cohort of people who just cannot be accessed. So those individuals from, minorities and from, for instance, LGBT plus communities that we are not accessing. So we just want to find a way to kind of access those individuals and cater to their very individualised needs. So we need to work out how we can do that. We were, for instance, aware in London that there is an LGBT dementia service or network, but we didn't know about what else was out there in rural communities. And we actually explored how things were very different between us here in London assembled today, and actually whether similar discussions can are occurring throughout the country, or if the people from around the country are being represented in this room today. So we felt that actually addressing isolation and reducing inequalities amongst minorities was very, very important. In terms of practicalities, we felt that travel should very much be on the agenda for every, looking at integrated care and looking at how we serve individuals with dementia. We realised that it's not always easy to access day centres, it's not always easy to assemble in a specific place. So we're thinking about actually transport and travel should be quite high on the agenda. We should look into the practicalities of that, not just for the individuals who are experiencing dementia, but also for the people around here. So how can we actually get professionals and stakeholders together in a practical way?
Thank you very much. Can we pass that over there? Who's wanting to take the microphone over there? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our focus on the priorities was one of the education training, so all involved, not just people who are actually within the professions, but everyone's on the same page, and probably a rethink of the whole system with a personalised hat on. We talked an awful lot about people wanting to live well and living in their communities. So we talked a bit about dementia-friendly communities, but about really the individual being able to do what they wanted to do and not be sent to places that, this is for people with dementia, or this is for people with bad feet, or whatever.
Yeah.
But actually being able to do the things they really enjoy doing. So that was our focus. And then on the possibilities, it is also about educating people around the personalisation agenda and what they're able to expect. So I think that builds on what other people have said earlier on. Moving away from the historical medical model, obsessing with a diagnosis, but to live just normally. I think that's what everybody wants to do. Not to continue to do with the things we've always done, and need to support. A lot of professions will need to change the way that they've done things historically. And then in terms of the focusing on the practicalities, because we were looking at the big stuff that people like to do every week. So we talked about some schemes like slow shopping, where schemes are in place to enable people to go out and shop, and they're not going to get harassed by people getting irritated. But so we thought that who were missing from one of the hubs or whatever, representation from shopping, whether it's Waitrose or the community, from transport, pharmacists we thought were key. It could be banks and building societies and our opticians. So a whole range of people that could be involved and help people actually to live normal lives.
I have to say, in York's quite ahead of the game in a lot of things. We know in York who the taxi firms are who get it. We know where the shops are who get it. We know the ones who might have the sort of flowers up in the window, but a lot of the people who are there haven't got a clue. But they put the sticker up because 3 of the people, sat and watched it, and so we can see it. And once word gets out, it's more than brilliant customer care because everybody benefits. Right, and then other people, and it's good business sense because people will go to those taxi firms and go to those shops because they show that they're bothered about the people that are within our community. Thank you very much.
There's one quick, I just almost forgot, the importance of cultural differences.
Exactly. Yes.
It's not everybody's the same, so we do need to be aware of cultural differences.
Yeah, totally. Thank you very much. Next, by the way, it's harder for these 3 tables because you've all done the heavy lifting already. They haven't filtered through it. What have you got?
Okay, our group also touched on personal
Or
health.
can you put it closer?
Our group touched on personal health budgets. Is that better?
Bit louder.
Yeah, bit louder, okay. We touched on personal health budgets and advocacy as well. And obviously the need for more work around that area. We also talked about personalised care and support planning and the fact that it should be an inclusive process, including family and carers wherever appropriate. And shared decision making should be involved. It's the application of the comprehensive personalised model of care effectively. But what we talked about as a group was the fact that there are so few people that say they've got a personalised care plan. Lots of people have care plans, but whether it's personalised or not is very difficult to quantify. So education is needed and training for all of those involved in the care of somebody with dementia with regards to the care planning side of things. A culture change is needed. We also talked about clearer support. We were looking at certain areas. There are health navigators and community navigators, and it's not clear from somebody who's just been diagnosed with dementia who provides what support and what support they can get where, and the necessity of actually joining this up. And we also talked about health and social care coordination, somebody available to oversee the whole pathway. And obviously the necessity of that. In terms of possibilities, we looked at sharing resources. I'm probably not going to articulate this very well, but sharing resources, people with experience, sharing knowledge with individuals and systems wherever possible. And in terms of practicalities, obviously it was advocacy and more work needs to be done around personal health budgets and more resources overall. And that's pretty much it, I think.
Thank you very much. Please pass the microphone over.
Thanks. We went through some of the issues that other people have raised, but we started by saying that everybody should challenge the institutional ageism within health and social care. So that nobody should have block contracting anymore. Everybody should have a personalised care plan, and it should start by asking people what sort of a life they want, and then the care plan should work back from that. In terms of the possibilities of things that we could do, I mean, in terms of that inequalities agenda, well, we could do something very radical, like take a case to the court around the Equality and Human Rights Act and identify that people living with dementia are getting a really bum deal from both the health and social care section. And in terms of practicalities, we thought we could act a bit as a critical friend, but also we could act as a place where we could clearly define what the success measures for social care prescribing are. Because I think one of the things that we've got is no clarity about what good looks like and no unified measures so that everybody can be called to account for them. Because some of us on this table who are a bit cynical, who've been through this movie several times before, wonder what difference this is going to make.
Well, I asked the question in York, what is dementia friendly? I said, what is it? Tell me what it is. Right, and nail it down what it is, and then we can see if it's it. As opposed to someone saying, oh, well, we're trying to do this. It's like me saying, I'm trying to be an Olympic gymnast, but can I be honest, it's not really happening. And I just think we need to know what these things are. If there's no goal, you can't score. Over to my friends in the corner there. Finally, then we'll...
Thank you. I'll keep it brief, because with the last table, it's really fun. So we were looking at hospital discharge, both ends, avoidable admission, so not putting people in there in the first place if we can help it, and delayed discharge. So we know that these are areas of concern at system level and obviously at personal level. One of the things that came up in our discussion was preventative agenda. Specifically, we were talking with my friend here from Occupational Health, who has mentioned that they've done a report recently on preventative measures and also positive risk-taking, which is good and something we talked about earlier, and the preventative stuff looking at self-care and community engagement as well. So I think we were talking about how we can embed personalised care within that occupational health framework. Therapy, sorry, my occupational therapy framework. And also that, which someone mentioned earlier again, was that how can we support that shift away from that kind of medicalisation, look at everything, look things more holistically. We did have a talk about link workers and how they can be, central to making those connections between care services and people that need the care, and how that can also be ensure a smooth discharge service. Social prescribing, again, looking at the preventative element of that, and how we can reduce the amount of avoidable admissions by, practical social prescribing solutions. And we have on our table, in terms of assets, so we've already talked about our occupational therapist asset. We also have researcher for UCL asset, who let us know about some research that she's working on currently on developing a tool around shared decision making, which is really great as well. And we looked at the practicalities, and we didn't want to be negative, but we had to put it down on the list. Social care, the lack of funding around that, the lack of green paper that we were waiting for. But in the meantime, we did identify some good ways of approaching PCN, primary care networks, and looking at how the collaborative working, the integration that's already taking place there, how can we use that? How can we also, as experts in our field, inform the work that's being done or that will be being done by link workers, for example? And our other asset, or our two other assets that have left the table now, but one from NHS England and improvement of to share the findings with DCAM from the primary care network mapping exercise that they've been asked to complete as well, so that should help too. And I think ultimately what we were saying as well was how the network itself is going to be really crucial to getting the right people to have the right conversations at the right time. So thanks for everyone here.
Now,